Okay, here we go. Here's our virtual lunch and learn presentation. And again, thanks to everybody who's here listening in. All right, so as I mentioned, my name is Erica Hermson, founder and director of Everwild Forest School. And Everwild Forest School, for those who don't know, is an all-weather outdoor program here in Boise, Idaho. We have 5 different locations in what's called the Treasure Valley. And we are an all outdoor, all season program. So even now in the middle of winter, our kids are out there playing and exploring and enjoying all that there is to offer in the winter weather. Right, so the next slide. All right, so this presentation is about getting kids outside in cold weather. And we got in everybody. Okay, so getting kids outside in cold weather, and that's really important because there are so many benefits to getting kids outside when it's even cold outside. And there are also some myths that are surrounding getting kids outside in the wintertime. And one of, I think, the biggest myths is that the cold will cause colds. And I think most people understand now that colds are caused by viruses and bacterial infections, and that the cold weather does not actually cause those to activate or get any stronger. In fact, studies have shown that cold weather will actually increase your ability to fight off infections by getting the immune system more activated. And by the way, I will be talking a lot about different studies about nature and the benefits of that, and I can provide those to you later at the end of the presentation. All right, so think about if you have children of your own, or if you watch kids or some sort of childcare provider, how often does your child get outside, or do your kids get outside? Because right now the studies are showing that kids are spending about 60% more time indoors than their parents did. So that's my generation. So I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and it's a bit different for us because they are involved in the forest school and other outdoor programs. But we do see that kids these days tend to spend way more time indoors than their parents. Children who are involved in conventional schooling are typically spending about 7.5 more hours per week on academics than their parents. And I find that this is a really interesting statistic, just knowing that, I went through public school as a child, and but since then, since the 90s, a lot of things have changed. We've had the No Child Left Behind Act that came down, and also other legislation that has required more rigorous testing and standardized assessments. So we see that coming through on increased level of academics with our kids in those types of programs. And of course, as they're spending more time on academics, things like PE, even recess, and other things that would require movement, especially outdoors, have been impeded by that. So we are seeing more and more kids in desks, especially, and indoors. The average child spends about 7 minutes a day engaged in unstructured free play outside. So we're missing that outside piece on that factoid, but unstructured free play outside is super important for child development for any child. And typically we're talking about the ages 0 to 5 when we talk about early childhood. But this statistic actually goes up to age 15. So children need to be spending unstructured time outside. So that does not include things like organized sports or PE or even recess, because recess is usually so short and requires kids to get ready, get out there. And by the time they're actually engaged in full unstructured free play, it's time to go back inside. So that is a sobering statistic in my mind, that children are spending such little time outside, because there are so many benefits to getting outside, especially in winter. And here's a short list actually of the benefits of nature. For health-wise, nature decreases anxiety and depression, also presents lower ADHD symptoms in children. It reduces inflammation, through the phytoncides that are released by trees and shrubs that are outside that actually interact with our body's physiological systems. It enhances a sense of well-being in children and adults alike, and a decreased risk of diabetes and heart disease later on in life. Academically, nature actually has shown to increase grades and test scores, and that is correlated with the amount of time children spend in green space. Academically, it also, nature helps problem solving skills, and that is because of that creative play that typically happens when children are outside exploring and making discoveries on their own. Nature also improves motivation for learning by triggering an innate sense, intrinsic sense of learning, wanting to be motivated because they're interested in a lot of the things that they find outside. Also, nature helps the ability to focus. And because of that, children outside who spend more time in nature get to practice those skills and focus and attention and get to carry that through to academics and have that apply to when they're learning in a more structured way. Socially and emotionally, nature helps increase resiliency, and winter especially has a lot to do with helping children build skills and resiliency by being outside in the cold, but also rain and other types of weather that aren't always perfect sunshiny bluebird days. Help children understand that comfort and convenience does not always mean great things for children, because there will be times in their lives where it will be stormy, it will be uncomfortable, and nature helps teach us how to develop skills of resiliency for that. Emotionally, also, we have enhanced self-regulation skills. So I personally am working on an entire professional development series for educators in the state of Idaho that work with the sensory processing that nature is enabling in children. And we're finding that there's so much that nature does to help self-regulation in children. Classrooms these days, if your child is in a more structured program, tend to be brightly colored classroom walls, fluorescent lighting, lots of echoey noises, and maybe even some background buzzing. A lot of times kids are uncomfortable sitting in hard chairs or restricted movement. And all of that has shown to be very dysregulating and disruptive to children, which makes it harder for them to develop those skills in self-regulation. And so we see a lot of behaviors where children are acting out when they're in inside environments. Well, if they're put in nature for longer periods of time, they have the chance to slowly and intently develop those skills in self-regulation by practicing it out in nature with the gentle stimulation that nature provides. They are able to do that. Nature also offers a sense of belonging. We call this sense of place. And especially when coupled with a guide or a teacher who helps children feel connected to nature, it gives them a sense of place. That's very important for overall well-being. Oh, those are some of the benefits of nature, and there's countless others. So with all of these wonderful benefits, what are the barriers to getting kids outside, specifically in the winter? Take a moment to think about your children or even yourself and how it looks getting outside right now in the wintertime when things are a bit colder compared to, say, spring, summer, fall, when things are warmer. I can think of a few barriers. So number one would be the discomfort of being cold, right? So who really likes to be freezing outside, walking around in the cold or even in the rain, getting wet and damp? Well, other studies have shown that children do better at being outside in uncomfortable weather, and that it's really the adults who have developed this idea of discomfort in some of these settings. And something that's really important is for the adults then to model being resilient in this type of weather. So if you ever find yourself with children and saying like, oh, it's raining today, or God, it's cold outside, saying these things that model discomfort or dissatisfaction, especially calling it bad weather or yucky weather. It's just weather, and it's supposed to be here. We're supposed to have rain so that the plants, and that we can also have water. It's supposed to snow to create snowpack up in the mountains so that we do have a water supply. And also, there's seasonality and a cyclical nature to our environmental systems that biologically are required by most animals, a time to rest and relax, while also introducing this really fun aspect of getting outside in the snow for children. So next time, if you find yourself looking out the window or checking the weather and saying something, try to catch yourself. And instead of saying, "Oh, it's yucky outside," if you need to, if you feel the need, you can say, "Oh, it's raining. Oh, it's snowing." Or even better, you can say, "Oh my gosh, it's a beautiful day." Or, "Wow, look at all the snow out there that we can go play in." Or, "Gosh, there must be so many cool puddles today." Or, "Look at all the worms that are going to come out." So really trying to model that enthusiasm, even if you don't really feel it at first, to get outside, and that will help carry on through your child's perspective of weather as well. Other barriers to getting outside in the wintertime: gear. That's a big one. So gear can be bulky and expensive, and confusing for some people. So let's start with the first one: bulkiness. So a lot of children, especially around younger ages, can have some sensory issues surrounding, or sensory challenges surrounding, all the different types of textures that they have to wear when getting geared up to go outside, whether it's wool underclothing or the kind of the feeling of that polyester on the outside and the zippers and the buttons and all the things. So a great way to practice that is to actually do it inside before they have to get outside. Again, nature presents so many different challenges in the wintertime, especially with it being colder. So why not take it step by step? And if you find that your child is one that is extra sensitive to the gear, start inside. So have them wear their underlayers around the house, have them put on a jacket and wear it around the house for a little bit before they get too hot, of course, and slowly introduce and naturalize this gear that they would be putting on. Also educating them about the importance of the different types of gear. So when you layer up to get outside, you'll have your base layers or your thermals. And typically that would be a merino wool or a synthetic polyester rayon fabric. And the wool and the rayon and synthetic fibers, what they do is help wick off moisture. So if your kid's out there running around starting to build up a sweat, if it were cotton underneath, that would hold that moisture in that spot. And eventually when your child cools down, it could create cold sensation, which we're trying to avoid. It's already cold enough. So what we do is those materials that are wool or rayon or polyester help wick that moisture away and keep it off the body. Then next we've got a fleece over pullover, or you can have cotton at this point. Now that you're not right against the body. If you're out in the rural areas, we really want to avoid cotton at all costs because of the issues that it could have with keeping moisture against the body in cold temperatures. But if you're close to home, if you're not going to be outside for too long, and they have access to coming back indoors, just really focus on those base layers as not being cotton, but anything else is fine if that's all you have. So fleece outer layer or on top. Usually we call this play clothes. So you can put play clothes on top of those base layers. And on top of the play clothes, you can have another fleece jacket or pullover. And then you'll want a waterproof layer on top. So I see a lot of those puffy jackets out there, and that's wonderful for warmth. But usually the puffy jackets aren't super, they don't get rid of the water, so they're not really waterproof or water resistant. You'll want either an outer shell, or you'll want something like a ski jacket that has the puffiness underneath and the waterproof layer built in on top. So that's kind of what you'll want for your jacket and pants, and snow pants are also great. For gloves, that's a really important one. I see lots of kids having gloves that are not waterproof, and waterproof is so important in the wintertime. And a lot of times too, you can go ahead and just prep those gloves by putting hand warmers inside and then putting the gloves on. It's so much easier to stay warm than to get warm. So really helping your child understand that they want to go outside already warmed up. So instead of waiting to put those hand or foot warmers in until they're cold, go ahead and put them in the beginning. Hat on. You can also, if you get a foot warmer that has a sticky side to it, you can stick the side of that foot warmer on the top of the hat on the inside, and that also keeps their head extra warm. You may have already heard that we lose a lot of our body heat through our head, which there's some truth to that. So it's important to keep the head covered. And nice wool socks, thick socks, and waterproof boots. So that's what we need for winter gear. And after all of that talking, you can hear that that's a lot of stuff. And so getting all that gear, especially high-tech stuff, can be a barrier for families. So looking at places like secondhand stores, Facebook Marketplace, and other hand-me-down shops are a great way to try and get secondhand goods. You don't have to get brand new, the highest tech type of gear to get outside. And if all else fails, if you don't have any of that stuff, again, try to get wool items and get your kid outside even for 30 minutes at a time until they start to get wet and cold, and bring them back in. But if you can get some gear that's good, that will last, and that will help take them through the rest of their time in nature, in the cold. So those are some of the big barriers. And then also just again, being uncomfortable. And if your child is not used to getting outside, of course they would rather sit and play a video game or play something that's more that's actually built to stimulate their brain in that way. Video games, computer games, things like that, cell phones. Our brain releases lots of dopamine as we're engaging with those, lots more and a lot quicker than when being outside. And so naturally children would likely be drawn to wanting to play with those types of things than going outside in nature and being quote unquote bored. So it's a challenge. It can be a challenge for some kids to let that go and go outside. But if you are able to go out with them, especially, and create a connection to them in nature, and help them create connections to nature, by and by, they will start to have more dopamine releases that will essentially train their brain to enjoy being outside. And hopefully they would then seek it out later on. Any other barriers that you can think of, I'd love to hear at the end of the presentation. So here's a picture here of this little boy playing with snow. And snow is one of course, the highlights of wintertime, but doesn't always happen. And when snow isn't out there and it's just cold and just brown and just gloomy, but of course, we're not talking about it that way. We're going to talk positively about nature as much as we can. But naturally, children may not be as drawn to that type of environment than if there were snow. Because of course, you can make snowman, you can put food coloring in a squirt bottle and squirt the snow and paint. It's really fun to interact with snow. But if that doesn't happen, there's other things that we can do, and I'll be talking about those activities later on. But if you're not in an area that has snow, then there's other things that you can find, especially if it's cold enough for ice. And ice play is really exciting. So that will lead me into talking about the risks and of getting outside in the wintertime. So of course, hypothermia is probably the top of the list. We want to make sure that children are nice and warm. And again, by making sure that by the moment they step out the door, they're already warm and toasty, that is going to be one of your keys to success, rather than going out already kind of cold or getting cold and trying to warm up outside. That's hard, or can be hard. But there's lots of ways that you can circumvent that. And so that would be, of course, getting out the door warm already, and then keeping the body moving, doing play games where you're playing tag or hide and seek, things like that. Of course, building snow people is a huge way to benefit the body with the movements by rolling up the snow and getting all of those really cool proprioceptive inputs as you're moving along outside. So staying warm is key. If your child starts to show signs of being cold, of course, shivering is the number one. That's the first step in getting kind of close to a hypothermic situation. Unlike adults, children can't regulate their heat and cold as well. And so it is really important to pay attention to when they're starting to get cold. If they're talking about cold, that is a time to take them seriously and help them heat up. You can give them hot liquids. At Everwild Forest School, we provide hot tea, herbal tea, and also, again, moving around, getting the body moving. If their lips are starting to turn like a shade of blue, that is when you really want to be more, you want to get them warmed up as fast as possible. So that would be a good time to bring them inside. Um, a good thing about building resilience is that we do want to teach a level of of developing coping skills for certain weather types, but we also don't want to force it and make it something that is a negative experience. We're really hoping to make most of the experiences outside positive for these children so that they have that positive relationship. So if they're out there and they're just constantly freezing cold, they're always going to associate negative experiences with wintertime play. So play as long as you can. When they start showing those signs of chill, get back inside, warm up, talk about all the fun things they did out there, and leave it at that. All right. Other risks associated with playing outside are in the cold and in the wintertime is ice. And that's something that we at Everwild Forest will run into all the time, since we actually operate mostly by the Boise River. And there's lots of little pools of ice that develop over time. And so ice can be a really awesome teaching tool for kids. They get to understand, of course, states of matter, where we've got vapor coming out of our mouths as we're breathing in the cold. And you've got that, you see that vaporous breath. Then you have water, and then of course you've got ice, a solid. And so it's just a wonderful way to physically show children different states of matter. If children have the opportunity to walk on ice, going slowly and really working on focus and paying attention to their surroundings as they're stepping on ice. And if you get to do it with them, you can make it kind of fun by saying, okay, listen, all right, listen. And as they're stepping, if you hear any cracks, what does that mean? Oh, step off of it now. If there's no cracks and it's really thick, oh, how far can we go? And of course, making sure that any water underneath the ice is no higher than, I would say, 6 inches as a child, because we don't want that going up above the boot line. If they don't have boots that go up to the calf, we just want to make sure that if they do fall in, it's not above their ankle. So it doesn't become, again, a really scary thing for the child, but just like kind of an exciting thing. Oh, we fell in, oh my goodness, and kind of making fun of it and saying, well, I guess ice got pretty thin here. I wonder why. And you can always talk about how, well, it's a depth here at this level, and so it's a little warmer. So ice does create a lot of really wonderful ways for kids to engage with nature. Some of the places that we have found at Everwild Forest School, the ice is thick enough where they can actually slide around. They can play almost like a ice hockey game with sticks and pine cones. So don't be afraid of ice. And of course, kids will fall. They typically will fall back and put their arms out, their bottoms out, depending on their abilities. And that it will be up to you to determine if you believe they have the ability to fall correctly, not just, being able to brace themselves as they're falling down. If and that is something that's up to you. But it should be a level of risk to any child's outdoor play, regardless of what season it is, because if we don't allow them to take risks now as children, they statistically will take more risks as adults, and not just physical risks. So it does show that as children are able to engage in risky play in young ages, it is incredibly beneficial to their development. So we do encourage risk. Now, there's a difference between risks and hazards. If you have, so for example, with ice, if you have an iced over puddle, that's not as risky as an iced over lake and you walking across the lake. So making sure to look around, is it hazardous or is it risky? So putting that in your brain as you're facilitating outdoor experiences with your kids or putting rules around their engagement with nature. Okay, so another barrier to getting outside and playing is friends. If your kids are going outside by themselves, especially if they're not used to getting outside, perhaps you have an only child, or yeah, just one kid wants to go outside and they're by themselves. Some children who have developed a better sense of self-motivation and self-directed play will be fine. Others might want some friends. So if you find that a barrier to getting outside and playing is that they're the only ones wanting to do it or the only ones outside, make a play date out of it. Get some kids outside and say, hey, we're going to spend the next hour together playing outside. Even better, if you are a parent and you have a child, get outside with your kid. And again, even if you don't want to, you would rather do other things in your home that spark that dopamine response. Try getting outside and seeing if you can have another way to achieve that dopamine response, and perhaps you'll start liking it as well. Okay, so I think we're at the part where we talk about our activities. So let me this. Oh, actually, no, I wanted real quick to talk about loose parts. So another benefit of nature play anytime during the year are loose parts. And winter offers a wonderful way for children to engage in loose parts. And that's would be sticks, pebbles, acorns, leaves, anything, of course, that is loose that they can engage with and manipulate in a variety of ways is very stimulating and creates a sense of creativity in children and ingenuity that doesn't come from toys or other things that are predispositioned to be played with in a very specific way. So nature offers a lot of those loose parts. It can take 3 different types of sticks of different sizes. One can be the brother and the sister and the baby, and they can play with it even though it doesn't look like a doll. Having that ability to create that imagination and think outside of the box is something that loose parts enable for children. Right, that's my loose parts spiel. Winter activities. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment and let's see, bring it over to my winter activities. So we have 5 fun winter activities for you today that I'm just going to chat about. And I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. So there we go. There's a way for me to get this. It's fine. Okay, this first one is a journey stick. So this is a great activity that you can do with your kid together or with your children or with your small group. And what you'll do is go out and find a stick. And again, with all those loose parts available during the winter time, you can hopefully find a stick somewhere. You'll also want to bring either a rubber band or twine along with you. And as you go, you'll go on a little walk. And as you walk around, tape works as well. You can find little things in nature that are just special, that maybe your child was really drawn to a certain pebble or a feather or an acorn or a pine cone or a leaf. And as they pick it up, have them describe it to you. And why is it special to them? Why is it here right now? And then put it on your stick. And as you do your walk, they'll hopefully fill up their stick with all these really cool objects that they were able to create and pick up on their own and create for you. And this is one that you can do with them as well. And it's a shared activity that connects you with your children as well as you and your children with nature. And then you can bring it home and have it as a little souvenir. If you are able to do this in the winter, the spring, the summer, and the fall, and save your sticks, it could be a really cool way to compare the different items that you found throughout the seasons and see how they changed. So that is the stick walk. We've also call it a wonder walk. All right. These are ice ornaments and they're so fun to make. And what I love to do is go out with my children and collect different things from nature. And of course, in the wintertime, there's not all these beautiful berries available, at least in my backyard, they're not. It's mostly brown leaves and sticks and rocks. But if you'd like to go to the store or perhaps go to an area that you know has these things, you can pick really pretty berries. I've noticed that evergreen plants are really fun to put in that extra green color. You can go get cinnamon sticks. You can even get things like seeds and nuts and put them in there and hang them outside so that as they melt, perhaps the birds and squirrels will come around. So all you have to do is get these little nature items, you put them in a dish with some water and put it in your freezer, or even better, if it's really cold outside, put them outside, and then you can see how it changes overnight. And then it's a really cool cause and effect that your child can see themselves. Then they can put it on some twine and again, hang it up in the backyard as an ornament and see as it melts how it changes over time. All right. The next one is a fun craft here about making a lantern. So as we all know, wintertime in the Northern Hemisphere, we have longer nights, so more darkness. Luckily right now we have passed the winter solstice, so each night is getting shorter and shorter. but it's still getting pretty dark out. So making these fun lanterns is a way to engage and talk about the seasonality of things and how we have longer nights and shorter days. And this is a way to brighten up your night. So you'll just take a mason jar and you'll go out and get some leaves. You can either glue them to your mason jar, or if you'd like, you can get some contact paper and put that around the mason jar. Tissue paper is also fun to add a little extra color. And then you'll put a little tea light candle inside. I really like to use the battery kind just to reduce any fire risk, of course, and also getting that jar really hot to the touch is so. This is a really fun way to get your candles going. And if at the end of this presentation, by the way, go ahead and send me your email addresses either in the comments, or you can email me at info@everwildforestschool.org with your email address, and I will send you a copy of all of these activities, as well as any of the research articles if you'd like to look at those. Okay, here's another fun one, is a scavenger hunt. And you can, when I send you this, you can print it out on your own, or you can make one that you think would be better for your area, depending where you live, and going outside and playing scavenger hunt or bingo. My kids love to play bingo and see who can get any of them in a row, either up or down. But there are spiders. I have spiders on here, and that's a hard one to find, but there are spiders out there, even in the chilly cold, and bugs as well. Of course, there's usually lots of squirrels. I just noticed this says boulder, it should say squirrel. And so you can find these out there as well when you're walking around. Okay, I think this is the last one, which is Tea Time in the Forest, which is really fun. We love this book. It's called Tea Party in the Woods, and it's a wintertime tea party story. So getting that from the library or making a purchase, you can get out there with your kids and having a tea party. Now, I really love this activity, which kind of hints to it in the end here. It's a camouflage activity. And so what we talk about with our kids is when we're camouflaging in the nature, it's a little bit more difficult than if you are an animal out there in the summertime, spring or summertime, where you've got lots of thick vegetation to hide around. Now things are a bit more exposed. So what do you do if you're going to be hiding out there? So if you and your child, or if you have a group of kids, bring in a bunch of stuffed animals of all different shapes, sizes, and colors. Then go in your backyard or in your nature space and hide those stuffed animals around. And you do, as the adult, you hide them around. And then you give your kiddos 1 minute to go out and find as many of the stuffed animals as they can, and then bring them back to you. And after 1 minute, they'll bring those stuffed animals back. And notice if these stuffed animals that they brought back, are they the brightly colored ones? Typically they are. They're the bright ones that were easy to spot. Okay, now if there are other stuffed animals left out there to find, do another timer and see how quickly your kids can find those ones. And perhaps those ones are the more brown, or if it's snowing, white. Ones that are more naturally neutral colors may be harder to find in the winter. And they'll bring those back to you. And they were, again, harder to find. And so you get to talk about camouflage and how those stuffed animals, because of their coloring, were harder to find in this environment. And now that you've got all your stuffed animals together and outside, you can place them around in a circle and have a beautiful little tea time warm up and have just a wonderful connection to nature in that moment. There's someone, his name's David Sobel, and he is a wonderful place-based educator. He's a professor and an author, and he's one of my mentors. And he has what's called the 7 design principles for nature and childhood. And one of those design principles is creating a special place in nature. And this tea party activity will do that by creating a really special feeling of being outside in this tea party moment. And what he calls it as a transcendental experience for children, and it really helps to connect them to nature. Okay, so those are the activities. And again, I can email these to you if you shoot me an email with your email address, info@everwildforestschool.org. And I'll also send you those other research articles. And let's see, I'm gonna stop sharing and we'll go to my screen. And we're going to open up the last 15 minutes to questions. We'll have our Q&A moment. So if anybody has a question, just go ahead and start, and you can let me know if you have any questions. Oh, I see a question down here that says, what's your email? It's info@everwildforestschool.org. I'll put it on the chat. Oh, thanks, Kaylin. She put it in the chat so you can see that. You're welcome. Right. So, does anybody have any questions about getting outside in nature, about Everwild Forest School programming itself? I'd love to know. What is the youngest age for your school, and do parents attend? So I think because questions are coming in the chat, it must mean that people are unable to unmute themselves. So if you would like, you can definitely unmute if you can. If you can't, I have to do it for you, I can. But feel free to make this more collaborative with asking questions, so other people can hear you. But my the youngest age for Everwild Forest School is around 18 months. It's called our Tots and Trees program. So between 18 months and around age 3, we have our Tots and Trees program where the parents do attend with their littles, and they are able to engage in some of the nature play and lessons that the teachers implement for the kids. And we do say we keep it between 18 months and 3 years of age, because that's the target age for a lot of these activities, but they can be enhanced for older kids. We do have some kiddos who are almost approaching 4, so they're older ones, and they're still having a really great time. Little babies are also welcome to come if parents have a younger sibling that they want to wear or take with them. It's just that the activities might be a little more developmentally advanced for the young ones. Okay, any helpful tips for transitioning from outside to inside and inside to outside? Yes, transitions are huge for kids. So you may have noticed, if anybody has ever had a child in a daycare setting or in school, especially when they're younger, when you bring them home, at least this happened to me, where my kid would just have a full-on meltdown. And there's 2 things happening there. It's a transition, and they're back home safe with me where they can fully express themselves, and they've kind of been bottling it up all day. So transitions are a big thing for kids. And a lot of times what we can do is notify when transitions are about to happen. So if you're outside and you're about to go inside, and if it's not a natural transition where your child is choosing to come back inside, say you have an appointment you got to get to and they're actively playing out there, usually by the 5-minute mark, that's when you want to say, okay, we're about to come inside. This is what we're doing. All right. Okay, you got 5 minutes. Now, depending on the age of the child, 5 minutes means nothing, really. That's an outside concept to them. It's very abstract. That includes calendar time. So if anybody has a program where they're doing calendar time, any kid below the age of 7, that is way too abstract for them. Calendar time is not appropriate for that age, as is saying we have 10 minutes, we have 5 minutes. But by saying it verbally, at least at the 5-minute mark, it's enough time to where they start to get a feeling. Anything outside of 5 minutes is just the same, half an hour, same thing. So if you get out there and you say, we have 5 minutes left, and then on the minute, every time, all right, 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left. And that really helps them mentally prepare for this transition. Also, if you have a child who responds better with auditory transitions, a bell, a gong, other things like that, if you ring the bell once, you got 5 minutes left. 2 times, 4 minutes left, you can, or even ringing it the number of minutes you have left. Those auditory stimulations can help children better prepare for what's coming. And those can be used outside or inside for transitions. You can also talk about what to expect. So if you say, we're going to be going outside in 5 minutes, where we're going to play, have a snowball fight. And you can start that first, have your snowball fight, and then release them. So they were able to expect something that happened outside. Sometimes when kids have a transition and they move into that next phase and they don't know what's going to happen, it's unpredictable. That can be scary. So by saying, okay, we're going to do this when we get outside, or we're coming inside and we're going to take our jackets off. At least that's something predictable for them, that they can come inside. Okay, step one, take your jacket off. Okay. And then they're better prepared to move forward with that. Right. Hopefully that was helpful. Any other questions? So we got another one. Oh yeah, you're welcome. We have, let's see, we have 10 minutes left. So I am all ears, but if nobody has any other questions, you're free to jump off. Just shoot me your email address either in the comments or in an email. And again, I can send those fun activities to you all. I would love to know actually where everybody's from. So I see some new names on here. And if anybody feels brave enough to put where their city is everybody here in Boise, or are people around the country? Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you so much for this presentation. Sorry, I joined a little late and I'm just also trying to listen while I'm doing other things.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate hearing about your program and all the wonderful things you're doing for our children. They really are stuck indoors so much. And so, and I say stuck because I think, oh, my kids especially would really like to be outdoors more. And the whole thing about recess being so short is completely true. Just when they're starting to get into it, it's time to go back in. I was looking at your summer camps, and I'm just wondering, so how many children are there in each week? How many kids are able to accommodate?
Yeah, it changes depending on the age group. So if we have 4 to 6-year-olds, those are our early learners, and we've got 12 of those kiddos in the camp, and then 7 to 12-year-olds, we've got 14. And that's
Okay.
2 teachers.
And 2 teachers. Okay. And how many for the younger ones? Same, 2 teachers
2
for.
teachers.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Are you here in Boise?
I'm not actually. I live in the Bay Area,
Awesome.
but I'll be in Boise starting June. So, and we belong to a co-op here. We sent our kids to a co-op school, it's an outdoor school, and so we're really invested in that kind of experience for our kids. And so yeah, I just did a Google search and found you guys, and this is great.
Oh, so you'll be moving here in June.
Yes.
Oh, yay. That's so
Yeah.
exciting. Where in the Bay Area are you living?
I live in San Francisco.
Okay. I
Yeah.
moved over from Livermore, which is East Bay. So,
Oh, cool. My parents live there.
oh, cool.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, my parents live there. I used to live there. I lived there for a year before I moved to the city. Awesome. Nice.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, please reach out when you move here.
Yes,
Great to connect.
definitely. I saw something about enrollment. Are you taking summer enrollment yet, or?
February 1st. It will
Okay.
open. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else have questions? I see some folks, let's see, Caldwell, Vancouver, Canada. I went to undergraduate college in Bellingham, Washington, which is right near the border of Canada. And we would go up to White Rock and have some restaurant time, and then sometimes make the trip up to Vancouver. I love that city. I'm from Boise. That's Boise. And we have at least one person who has a kiddo in our program. Does anyone else, any of our Boise people have kids in the program? Either our Tots and Trees, early learning, homeschool enrichment, summer camps. If not, we would love to have your kids in our program at some point, whether it's summer camps or our school year programming. we've been around. So Ever Wild Forest School, I started it. Our first school year was 2020, which was, I mean, it was a crazy year anyway, but it was a crazy time. We had over 150 kids start with us right away. I was thinking maybe we'd have like 24 or something like that with a couple teachers, and boom, it just really took off and it was amazing. And we've pretty much kept consistent between about 130 to 180 in terms of our enrollment over the last several years. And it's just been a really beautiful program, and to see how all these kids coming outside and spending these days. We do have a forest kindergarten also. So that's ages 5 and 6. And that is all day, all outside, all week. So we do have a trailer that we've converted into a classroom, and they can go into that when they need to, but they really only spend like an hour or so a day in that indoor classroom space. And the rest of it, they're just out there exploring. They're doing things like they have a literacy and language arts program, a math program that they do, all nature-based, all place-based. And it's just a really cool thing to see these kids out there and flourishing and growing while with Mother Nature. So it's been a really cool program to be part of and to see everybody participate in as well. If we don't have any more questions, we can just go ahead and end it a little early, but I'll give you just a few more seconds to ask any more questions. Again, feel free to unmute or to ask your questions in the comments. And you can ask about Ever Wild Forest School, about my journey, about getting kids outside in general, any other statistics you want, because I love that stuff. Research is fun for me. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I really appreciate your patience as we worked through those first few minutes getting online here, but we did it. And I hope that that was a good resource for y'all. And I'll email you this when we are done here. And I just wish everybody a wonderful rest of your week. We are now in the snow moon cycle. So go out there, enjoy snow if it's around you, but at the very least, just go and get outside with your kids if you can and enjoy your time out there. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.